Y'all ever just talk so long about Twilight, you need to pop open a seltzer water? Me too. Before talking about Midnight Sun, the thing that I wanted to highlight would be information about the Quileute tribe, which is the Native American tribe that was used in the Twilight series. The Quileute tribe is a coastal tribe, and they're constantly at risk every tsunami season of flooding, and one earthquake could completely shatter them. The entire tribe would be wiped off the face of the earth. And they need donations in order to move their tribe to higher ground. And it's worth noting that the Quileute tribe hasn't received any monetization whatsoever from the Twilight series, either from Stephenie Meyer or from the movies. It is revolting that Stephenie Meyer has made this much money off of them and their legends, and she hasn't given them any money or boosted the link to their donation page even. I'm going to put a link in my description, linking to the Quileute tribe's donation page, and I really suggest doing it. When I purchased Midnight Sun, I pre-ordered it, so it just matched my pre-order, so whatever I was paying for Midnight Sun, I doubled and donated it to the Quileute tribe. And if you're thinking about buying Midnight Sun, I think you should do that. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to make mention of is that I did not buy Midnight Sun. I did not spend my hard-earned money on Midnight Sun thinking I was going to hate it. Like, I didn't buy this book thinking I'm gonna write a rant review about this, I'm going to talk negatively about this. I bought this because I thought I was gonna love it, because I loved Twilight as a kid. Twilight actually has been a huge impact on my life. So the only books that I had access to when I was a 13-year-old were the books that were on my father's bookshelf, which was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or The Deeds of Pexenarian. Neither books were written for 13-year-old girls, but in 2005, when Twilight was released, my friend let me borrow it, and that was the very first book that I read that was not only written for me, but that had a character that I could identify with. Bella was the girl that I related to, and Bella got the guy, and I had never read romance before, let alone a romance that I could put myself into. So Twilight made me want to continue reading. It really set off the hobby for me, so to speak. Once I read Twilight, I just started reading more books that were young adult oriented. I started checking more books out from the library. So Twilight is a nostalgia for me. I do have strong feelings for it. I make fun of myself for liking it, and so does everyone else in my life. So all of that to say, I really thought I was gonna love Midnight Sun. I really thought that I was going to enjoy this book, and I bought it thinking that. And then guess what? It disappointed the hell out of me. It really did. In fact, there's a tab in here on page 404 where I remember putting that tab in and then putting the book down and thinking, this is one of the worst books I've ever read.
Crushing it.
Am I?
Yeah.
The first thing that I want to talk about is that the writing is just bad, you guys. The writing is bad. I know that Stephenie Meyer has never really been known for her fantastic writing. That's nothing against people who do enjoy Twilight, because as I just went on for a long time, I love Twilight, but she's not it, all right? She's not the blueprint. Her writing style in Midnight Sun is tragic. It's bad. As I was reading it, I remember telling my boyfriend, in fact, that it almost felt like she wrote this book back in 2007 or 2008 and then just pulled it back off the shelf and dusted it off and maybe reread it, and then it got published. If you read authors that have a long backlist of books, take V.E. Schwab, for example. If you read The Near Witch, which is, I think, her first published work, and then you read the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, the difference in quality is noticeable. But there is no difference in quality from Twilight to Midnight Sun. She didn't progress as a writer, which is a shame. All right, so the book itself is long, and that's not an issue because I love long-winded books, but this book seems long-winded for no purpose other than to just write. It was almost like Stephenie Meyer, her editor just couldn't tell her to put down the pen when she really needed to. The fact that it's so long, but it is filled with so little events, really proves that Edward's inner monologue just goes on forever in this book. For proof of that, the climax of the book, or rather the huge event that everyone's always looking forward to, I know I was looking forward to when I first read the book, is when Bella gets like tortured and almost killed. That part doesn't actually happen. Well, it doesn't start until page 500. So when James first picks up on her scent is like, I'm gonna kill her, which, I mean, Edward can relate to that. It's not until page 500. It doesn't happen until all of the action doesn't happen until the very end. And the original Twilight is kind of like that too. The original Twilight's a little over 400 pages. It's almost 500 pages. First time James sees her is page 375. And I guess you could consider that happening pretty late in the book too, except for the fact that Edward's story and Bella's story is so different in terms of interesting plot points. Bella has so much going on in her story, like her introduction to Forks, meeting all of the Forks kids, constantly getting asked out by all of the Forks kids, growing this relationship with her father again after not seeing him for so long. Meanwhile, the only things that happen in Edward's point of view are him stalking Bella. That's it. We just have page upon page upon page of Edward stalking Bella. And it's not interesting in the least bit. It's gross, it's weird, and I didn't like it. And I hated being in his point of view because it just starts from page 1 with Bella, and then he's obsessed with Bella all the way until page 500 when something fun starts happening. One of the things, Midnight Sun is a young adult story that is written for adults now. Like, Stephanie Meyer even acknowledges it in her first page, her dedication to her fans. And the majority of people buying Midnight Sun are going to be adults, but the book is written so immaturely. Like, it's hard as an adult to read Bella and Edward's love story and take it seriously at all because it's so dramatic. There's the lines of Bella saying, I love you, and Edward saying, you are my life now, which are just, it's really cringy and really awkward and just, it's a very unbelievable story now that I'm an adult and reading it. I can read Twilight a million times and reread it 100 times because I read it when I was a little kid and I loved it when I was a little kid. But now that I'm an adult and reading this story again, it just feels so insubstantial. The thing that I was looking forward to the most when picking this book up again was seeing how she was going to tackle the problems that her initial book had. Twilight was a mess. It is full of so many problematic aspects, the stalking, the sexism, the racism. It's very unchallenged in the way it approaches a relationship between an 80-year-old vampire and a 17-year-old girl. And I thought maybe Stephanie would make that better in this by having Edward's point of view, or maybe that she would find a way to make it seem less bad. No, she didn't. She actually took it further and like really doubled down on like how badly she thinks about women and like how much she thinks Edward can do no wrong. And I'm gonna bring up some points and some direct quotes about the sexism that's very blatant throughout the entire story that just made me cringe and really upset me. The first one that I want to talk about is just the treatment of Rosalie in the book. The first time I read Twilight, I also hated Rosalie because I feel like you're supposed to hate Rosalie. But then as I got older and as the movies came out, I was like, oh, right, Rosalie really is that shit. Like, she's that bitch. And I loved her, especially played by Nikki Reed, because who doesn't love Nikki Reed? In this book, I was looking forward to seeing more of Rosalie's character and the development of her. I mean, all of the Cullens in general, but I was most interested in seeing why Rosalie is the way she is in Twilight, but it's not any better. Actually, it's worse. This is a quote from page 2. Rosalie was thinking, as usual, about herself. Her mind was a stagnant pool with few surprises. She'd caught sight of her profile in the reflection of someone's glasses, and she was mulling over her own reflection. No one else's hair was closer to true gold, and no one else's shape was quite so perfectly an hourglass. No one else's face such a flawless, symmetrical oval. Like, we're doing that now. We're really portraying our female characters that aren't Bella as like that, because that's the worst part that this book really partakes in. Anyone who isn't Bella is not a good kind of woman. I mean, we have Alice, but she's more of a plot device than she is an actual character. And you can really see it with Jessica Stanley as well, because Edward has the ability to read minds, which was another thing that was very interesting in this book and that I liked and also doubly hated because of these things. You have characters like Rosalie, who's beautiful and she knows she's beautiful and she owns the fact that she's beautiful. And then you have characters like Jessica Stanley, who are are also just a normal 17-year-old girl fantasizing about the hot boy in her class, and that's bad. You don't do that. You're not supposed to do that. And a lot of focus is on how she uses Bella because Bella makes her popular, and how mad she is because Bella like gets all of the boy attention. And it's really twisting this weird narrative that girls are supposed to want guys, but they're not supposed to want them in the way that Jessica Stanley does. And I just don't really get that. I don't see why Stephenie Meyer couldn't have just made Jessica Stanley normal. What was the narrative she was trying to push there? Besides the fact that Bella is the best girl in the world. And then the other character that we have, the other female that's not a vampire, like literally the only other female that's not a vampire in the book, is Angela Weber. And Angela is basically Bella, but not as cool as Bella. Like, Edward's not interested in Angela, only interested in Bella. But Angela is essentially Bella. She's quiet, she's introverted, all of her thoughts are very kind. She's constantly thinking about how she can help Bella, what she can do to make Bella's life easier. She's only ever thinking good, pure, nice thoughts. And she is the other girl that we're supposed to be like, yes, that's the good example of a girl. Here's another really good example of Stephenie Meyer's sexism just like bleeding through. I don't know if she meant to make sexism as a character trait of Edward's. I highly doubt it, because Edward is supposed to be this like perfect person. He's not supposed to have flaws. Like, he's not supposed to be sexist or anything, even though he is. So on page 132, you have a quote that says, "Normal human girls wouldn't raise their faces to the drizzle that way. Normal human girls usually wore makeup. Even here in this wet place, Bella never wore makeup, nor should she. The cosmetic industry made billions of dollars a year from women who were trying to attain skin like hers." That line in itself just made me stop reading the book and go like, why? Like, Stephenie Meyer's always pushing this narrative that Bella isn't like other girls. She's like clumsy, and she's like nice, and she doesn't wear makeup, but she's really beautiful, but she doesn't wear makeup. And I get how in early 2000s that could have really appealed. Like, that appealed to me because I didn't wear makeup. I didn't even know how to apply it or what to do with it. I can really see why 13-year-old me enjoyed that. But 13-year-old me didn't need to hear that. 13-year-old me didn't need to think that girls who wear makeup are bitchy or vain or bad or awful, and I'm the better one for not wearing makeup. And nor should girls who do wear makeup hear that and think like, oh, I'm wrong for caring about my looks, or I'm wrong for thinking that I'm beautiful. Food for thought. The Quileute tribe isn't used as much in Twilight as it is throughout the rest of the series. Obviously, it's a much bigger thing in the second, third, and fourth book when Jacob Black becomes a more prominent character. The Quileute tribe are how Bella finds out that the Cullens are vampires. So on page 200, this is when Edward finds out that Jacob Black was the one who told Bella the urban legend about being Cold One. And he says, well, in his mind he says, "I suppose this meant I was now free to slaughter the small defenseless tribe on the coastline were I so inclined. Ephraim and his pack of protectors were long dead." So here's the issue with that. White people already did that. So to have your white male main character saying in his mind how he is so mad that this tribe of Native Americans dare to breach this inane and dumb treaty means that he can now go kill all of them, which, like I said, is something that white people already did to Native Americans. So I don't know how this line got past her editors. I don't know why Stephenie Meyer wrote that and was like, I'm doing something there. That's the correct thing. That's exactly what Edward should be thinking in this moment. Because it's not, and it's weird. It's really weird. And then later, when Edward is confronted with Billy Black in like a very small moment and he's driving away, all of his thoughts towards this elderly, handicapped Native American man are disgusting. He's so hostile and volatile and angry at this man who is just a normal mortal man who has every right to be afraid of a vampire, but it's just, it takes it so much worse than that because he is elderly, handicapped, and a Native American man. And I really just don't understand how Stephenie Meyer had to have received some sort of feedback on her use of the Quileute tribe. That I refuse to believe that she is so ignorant in knowing the things that people have said in regard to her using this tribe. So how did she write this scene and these things and write Edward being so much vitriol towards the Quileute tribe? It's gross. It's really gross. Honestly, that's probably one of the biggest reasons I ended up hating this book so much, was because Stephenie Meyer, she took her sexism, she took her racism, she took her love of this toxic, disgusting relationship and she just kept it. She was like, I'm not changing anything. You guys are getting this toxicity in 2020. In the Twilight relationship like Edward and Bella. A lot of people like to hate on Bella because she is a Mary Sue. She's a self-insert. She's kind of... But in all honesty, if you took any 17-year-old girl, even now in 2020, and you introduced them to a smoking hot vampire, I don't see how they wouldn't form an insta-love. That makes sense to me. It makes sense that Bella fell in love with Edward in like 2 months because she's a young girl who, you know, has this interest from a immortal creature that's perfect in every single way. How do you not fall in love with that? How do you not fall in love with this perfect, like, pious, wonderful creature that has swooped down into your life and is taking you on hikes to a meadow and, you know, just doing all this fantastic, wonderful, vampy, immortal bullshit? I understand Bella. I don't fault her. In fact, I love her. I think she's great in Twilight, the first one. We're not going to talk about how she is in the second, third, and fourth one. We're not going to talk about it. But in the first one, I think she's funny. She's a well-rounded character in some ways. She calls Edward out on his bullshit a lot more than she does in the rest of the series. And she acts like a normal girl. Edward's point of view in falling in love with Bella is gross and weird. In fact, I remember telling my boyfriend about this book and kind of giving him like a little more detail into Twilight. And he said to me, so basically it's about an immortal vampire who manipulates a teenage girl into falling in love with him. That's what Twilight's about. It really is. And it really shows in Midnight Sun. The very first chapter, Edward is thinking about how many ways he can get away with killing Bella, like how he can eat her and kill everyone else around them and still get away with it. He's consumed by this all-encompassing desire to drink her blood. We all know this. Her blood, like, it's like crazy. It's so good. It's like the best blood he's ever smelled in his entire life, and he wants to eat her. He wants to kill her. So that's their introduction to romance. It's never explained how Edward falls in love with Bella. He just goes from A to Z, nothing in between. He's just like, damn, I want to eat this girl so bad, to Z, I literally could not survive living life without this girl. Edward and Bella, they meet, and then Edward fucks off. He's like, I gotta get away or else I'm gonna kill this poor innocent young girl and it's gonna be bad and my family's gonna hate me. And then he can't stop thinking about her, probably because her blood smells so good and he's so obsessed with the idea of killing her. And then he observes her kind of through everyone else's mind, which is creepy, that he's like spying on people's minds to watch her. And here's how Edward falls in love with Bella. Bella, unlike every single human Edward has ever met in the entire 80 years that he has ever been alive, Bella is nice to people. That's it. She's nice. In observing Bella from a distance, he basically just witnesses her being really nice and very unlike every other girl in Forks. Remember, it's Jessica Stanley or Angela Weber. All of a sudden, Edward feels in love with her. Like, it really does. It doesn't explain it at all. He basically is like, she's so different from every other human I've ever met. In 80 years, he's never met another person who's nice to other people, that he's just like, all right, this is the one. I'm in love with her. I want to eat her. I want to eat her really badly, but I'm also in love with her and I can't imagine living my life without her. I tried really hard to find in the book a moment that I could reference, maybe a quote that I could say where it was like, okay, this is it. Like, he's falling in love with her, but I couldn't find it because it just happens. It's just, okay, now he's in love. What? And it was weird. Now I want to get into some quotes. All right, now remember that Edward and Bella have basically the love story of a century. Like, there is no one who's more in love with them. This is it. These are the two. And this is why. Page 256. Bella is angry at Edward and she's like running away from him and she doesn't want to be near him. And he says, I kept pace with her, hoping that her anger would pass soon. She was usually quick to forgive me. Gross, dude. You didn't do anything for forgiveness. You're just chasing after her. And you know how easily she can forgive you. It's power imbalance. I hate you. 296. Edward himself is voicing an opinion that essentially my boyfriend said. Surely this was a warped, unhealthy way for her to begin her romantic life. Yes. So Edward is Bella's very first boyfriend, and then also for the entire rest of her existence, after she becomes a vampire, it's just her and Edward. She's never had any other romantic interest whatsoever. So at 17, it's incredibly likely that she thought all of this was normal. And it's not, but he notices. He knows that it's not okay. All right, page 417, a quote. I made her truly happy. Did that not excuse everything else? What? It doesn't excuse anything. It doesn't excuse the fact that he stalks her for upwards of 300 pages. It doesn't excuse the fact that he sends her mixed signals. All of those 300 pages going as far as to say, you should stay away from me, but do you also want to hang out with me? It doesn't excuse permanently changing the course of this 17-year-old girl's life. He basically comes into her life, and whatever person Bella was going to be and the person that Bella becomes diverge. This is Bella. She could have gone on to be a cute little poet living in Manhattan. And this is Bella, who now becomes a vampire and has a crazy weird demon baby with Edward. That's it. That's the end of the story. My cat's messing with wires. So if you hear her, that's why. That's what having a cat's like. As adult fans of Twilight, it's important for us to recognize and realize all of the issues that are within it and really call it out on that, because you can like problematic shit. You can be into stuff like that. I love Twilight. I'm going to continue reading it, but at some point you have to admit that this isn't the love story it's portraying itself to be. Teenage girls deserve better. They deserve to read books that aren't going to make them think that your boyfriend, it's cute if he stalks you. Oh, he broke into my room and watched me sleep and that's cute. And I know that we're supposed to be like, well, he's a vampire, so it's fine. But like, come on now. It's still gross and it's still weird. So the only things that I liked in this book, and I mean the only things that I liked in this book, was getting minor glimpses of the Cullens outside of Edward. But just seeing them interact with each other was phenomenal. That's the only thing that I really liked. And I think that there could have been more of it. The way Carlisle is talked about in this book is just chef's kiss, because he's like my favorite anyway. And like 50% of this book is Edward obsessing over Bella and wanting to kill her while also literally can't live without her. And then the other 50% of this book is just talking about how great Carlisle is. And honestly, 10/10, we stan, love Carlisle, he's great. And then all the other little scenes where like Alice and Jasper are doing things. There's actually a really great scene where Jasper, in the baseball scene, where James is like, I'm gonna kill this girl, she's mine now. Jasper is actually using his ability to cloak them. He's like giving off this sense of like, these people don't matter, don't pay attention to them, don't think about them. It's how you realize that they really got away with Bella not being revealed until the very end. And I just thought that was really cool. And I think that, Stephanie Meyer could have done a lot more with that. And she could have done a lot more with Alice too. Anytime her and Jasper were around each other, it was so cute. It was like, man, that's the relationship I wanted and I should have gotten and I didn't get, because it was great. Jasper loves Alice so much and I love it. All right, now I gotta wrap this up. Conclusion. I think that if you liked Midnight Sun, that's wonderful. I'm not saying anything against people who did like this book or who love this book or who are still interested in wanting to read this book. In fact, I think you should. If you are a diehard Twilight fan, you should read this book because you might enjoy it. I just didn't. I really hated it. I couldn't get past the problems that the series perpetuates. I just think that we should hold writers to better standards and that we should publish books for teenage girls that are going to give them the right ideas, that aren't going to push ugly narratives. Also just better writing. This is the conclusion. This is it. Stick around for more videos if you'd like. I'm gonna make more book-related content, including more reviews, wrap-ups, things that aren't just me talking negatively about a book. It's the first video I ever made, guys. Check out this Lovecraft comic my mommy gave me. Anyway, peace out.